Well, hello there, and thank you for spending your valuable time with us. I don't ever take that for granted and try to deliver as much value as we can. And today will be no exception for you. We have the pleasure today of talking with Nathaniel Turner, or just Nate, as he likes to say. And we're going to be talking about elevating child rearing with Nate's sort of patented backward design approach, which I can't wait to hear more about and share with you. So, welcome, Nate.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not know him, Nathaniel's a TEDx speaker or an author, a lawyer, a financial advisor. He does parenting, college, and career readiness advocacy as well. And as someone who survived, 8 adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, I hadn't heard that term before, he shows parents how to rise above, sort of childhood trials, tribulations, and trauma to be able to realize their dreams, but also to assist with having their children live into the biggest, best versions of themselves. So, Nate, obviously you're really accomplished. So, what set you on this particular path to sort of raise the bar on child rearing?
Well, first, I gotta say, you have raised the bar really high for me today. So I gotta deliver. Um, what put me on this path? I just wanted to be, honestly, to be a better father than my father was to me.
Yeah,
I didn't know exactly what that meant and what it would look like, but I just knew I wanted to be better. I wanted to have a better relationship with a child than my father had with me, and
yeah,
I wanted to have my child have better outcomes in their life than I had.
yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And if you're comfortable, and feel free to say if you're not, but do you mind sharing some of your, ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, and
Yeah.
how you overcame them?
Yeah, no, I have no problem. So the rest of the time we're together, if there's anything you want to ask, just ask it because I
Okay.
try to pride myself on being transparent. Otherwise, people can't understand what's really happening. We're keeping some things a secret.
Yeah.
The CDC says that there are 10 adverse childhood experiences, and those experiences range from living in a home with someone who's abusive. You can put check behind my life. Living
Okay.
in a home with someone who abuses drugs and alcohol. My uncle lived with us.
Yeah.
You can put check behind my life. Living in a home where you live in poverty, you can put a check. So there are 10 of these things, and
Yeah.
in my childhood, I experienced 8 of those.
Wow. That's pretty high. That's something you don't want to be scoring high on that. That's,
No, no.
but
You know,
yeah,
the interesting thing though, when you're a child and you grow up in a particular environment, you don't know that your life, that
yeah,
it is challenging. You
yeah,
just know, well, this is what I do. I live in a city and it's the most segregated city in America.
yeah,
97% of people here in Gary, where I grew up, are African American. So I to see you would be foreign
yeah,
because there's not a lot of you in my when I was growing up in my city.
yeah,
So, right, to see kids with a lot of wealth and privilege,
yeah,
that's completely foreign. I didn't
yeah,
see those things until my mother dropped me off at college.
yeah, yeah. I hear you. My guy, what you're saying is resonating so much. And, I'm thinking growing up, we don't know the other until we're exposed to it though, right? Like I grew up in what was
Absolutely.
considered a really tough neighborhood and, subsidized income,
Hmm.
apartment complexes. I
Hmm.
don't think I ever even met people who lived in their own houses like kids
Right.
until I went to, to the next level of school. And it was like, wow,
Wow.
like, oh my
Exactly.
gosh, what is this? So I hear you. And again, so much addictions issues on both sides of the family. And that almost becomes a normalized experience. And then you get in other homes and go, wow, apparently
Right.
that's not the norm. This
Right.
is
Just
different.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
well, uh,
Exactly.
thanks for sharing that because I think it helps our listeners as well push past excuses. And I'm going to call you out on it, listeners out there. If any of you have had these adverse childhood experiences, I think we have a choice to make. We either use them as excuses that hold us back, or we make a choice to push past them. So, how did you overcome those, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no worries. So I think, to be honest, the truth is that we're all amalgamations of the people, places, and things in our life.
Yeah.
Aristotle has an interesting quote. He says, "Bring me a child by 7, I'll show you the man." And I always say, I believe if Aristotle was here today, he'd be canceled because he used man instead of people. So, so we're not going to cancel Aristotle. We're gonna assume Aristotle would have gotten with the times and said, "Bring me a person at 7, right? I'll give me a child at 7. I'll show you
Yeah.
the person."
Yeah.
I think that who I am, who manifests later on in life, is the person that
Yeah.
I get to be from 0 to 7.
Yeah.
So Like, I don't take a whole lot of credit for it. I just assumed that I had enough people pouring good things in my life from 0 to 7.
Yeah.
Even the trials and tribulations, figuring out
Yeah.
how to turn a trial into a triumph,
Yeah.
right? That those things become things you get from your early childhood. And then lastly, I would say, I think what helps bring those things out of you is that when you meet people, and I met people who
Yeah.
decided to love me, as I say, for no reason,
Yeah.
then when those people show up, then all of that stuff that's in you that you didn't know was in you
Yeah.
has a chance to come out.
Oh, that's beautiful. And sometimes it only takes one person, right? One teacher, one special somebody who notices something in you, right?
Yep.
It's funny. I remember in grade 2, I got one of those silly little, like an academic, well, you're younger. They used to give these
I
little
don't know.
tabs at the end of the year. And I got one for academic. And I had never even contemplated the idea about smart, not smart. And I am still convinced today, Nate, that was when I kind of
Yes.
puffed up. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm smart. Maybe I need to be smart, and lived into
Absolutely.
that. Now, you had
And
mentioned about your environment. What role do you think, especially that was, predominantly African American, someone like me walking down the street would have been like an anomaly. So what role do you think societal expectations have, and how can we overcome them? Because, we pay a lot of lip service today to not having those kind of judgments, but man, we got a long way to go. So what are your thoughts on that?
so living in Gary, so my full name is Nathaniel. So I'm going to start with this
Yeah.
societal expectation I have. My name is Nathaniel. My father and mother, I was born in 1965. So
Yeah.
in 1964, when my mother learns that she's pregnant, Malcolm X had
Uh,
died in Malcolm X passes, I believe, in March of 1965.
yeah.
My father wants to name me Malcolm. My mother's having no parts of naming me Malcolm. She's not having it.
Yeah.
Talk about, she doesn't want that societal expectation and
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
She wants to name me Nathaniel, which is Hebrew for gift of God.
Yeah.
My father wants to name me Nat after Nat Turner. If you're not
Okay.
gonna let me name him Malcolm, I want to name him after this revolutionary.
Yeah.
So I get this name that everywhere I go as a child in a city that's 97% African American,
Yeah.
that every classroom I ever walk into, people say, "Do you know who you are?"
Yeah. That's
So I had the pressure of my name
yeah.
everywhere that I go. Now, when I finally do arrive at an institution that this is Butler University, and there are only 38 students who look like me out of about 3,000 students.
Wow.
Now I have the societal expectation of
Yeah.
pressure of people having never seen me other than
Yeah.
maybe with some handcuffs and in a prison jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And so they have thoughts about me, about who I am. But I also have these people back at home who are expecting me to be the Hebrew gift of God and
Yeah.
a revolutionary.
Yeah.
So you carry that around with you everywhere you go.
And what an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of that, because you've got that pressure both ways, right? You've got
Both ways.
the pressure to succeed, given your namesake, and the societal pressure at the other end that you're not going to be able to succeed. So
Absolutely.
what a
Yep.
great, interesting contradiction. So tell us about your life template, this backward design process. I know when I first met you, I only had the chance to meet you briefly, and that really
Sure.
caught my attention. So what is the backward design process, and how do we use it?
So it's like this, Cindy. If you and I decided to go somewhere, I believe you're in Canada
Yeah.
and I'm in Indianapolis area.
Yeah.
And let's say we decided to go, I'd say we're going to go to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to drive, maybe I'm going to drive. We're probably not going to drive, but assuming
Yeah.
we were to decide to drive, we would probably both need a GPS.
Yeah.
We have the same destination, but the route from which we get there has to be different.
Nice.
The backward design template is that very thing. I ask parents what are their most audacious hopes and dreams
Yeah.
for their children. And once you can tell me what that dream is, then the objective with backward design is to start to map a process to get you to that destination, just like you and I would do if we were making a journey.
Yeah. I like that. And that is such a simple concept, but we don't do it. We kind of blunder along, especially in our parenting, right? We're just they feel like we're in survival mode, going without a vision, which is about where we want to end up. And yet you
Which,
can't hit a fuzzy target. So
no, which is an interesting thing because everything that we own and everything that we treasure has a manual,
yeah,
except our children.
it's so true.
And we somehow pride ourselves on telling people, well, you know, there's no manual. Yeah, but this is ridiculous for you to say. There's no manual for TV, but we make one. There's no manual for painting, but we create them. why are we still having children and saying there's no man?
Yeah, that's so
So
good.
I thought, yeah, I thought this was ridiculous. So maybe we should have a manual for our child. So
No,
we
I've
do.
heard you suggest that we need to provide Lamaze style education for child rearing. Is that what you mean by that? That like,
I do, absolutely. I think so. We get these most incredible, I don't say things, we get the most incredible life form known to man, these babies,
yeah,
who in 3 years are going to see their brains grow 80% capacity, for all this potential for what they could become.
yeah,
And we leave home, and I did this, we left home knowing more about how to put a car seat in
yeah,
than we do about
that
raising a
is
child.
true. Oh
Right.
my God, that's a
Right.
striking image. That is so true.
Right. Right, Lamaze teaches us how to feed ice chips, and here, rub on her back right here, right? Don't frustrate her doing okay, but when the baby is born, in the US, certainly, in 36 hours, you're kicked out
Yeah.
the hospital.
Oh yeah. Yeah, less here now.
Right. So what am I supposed to do now? I've got this
Yeah.
baby. I don't, nobody's told me what to do. And everybody says, oh, you'll figure it out. Well, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's a terrible idea. If I ask you how do I put the car seat in, you give me the manual.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I ask you, can I drive? I need a license.
Yeah. And
So
even just our mindset around it, as you're saying that, Nate, right? Like I always say, our first and most important negotiation is with ourselves, negotiating our mindset. So, how important is mindset in effective child rearing? Because most people, we're not intentional about it. We just are in reactive mode, right? So,
yeah,
what are your thoughts on how we can negotiate better mindsets in ourselves as parents?
one of the things I ask folks is I ask, who are you? And so let me put so maybe people put a little this in a little context. A few years ago, several years ago, I should say, Simon Sinek gave a TED talk about great leaders begin and end with why.
Yeah.
And everybody that I know started saying, you got to know your why, you got to know your why. And one day I was like, well, why are we talking about why? Shouldn't we be talking about who?
Oh, I
Because
love that.
because I have a master's in history and theology, and for a small period of time in my life, I spent some time in the pulpit.
Yeah. Huh.
What I
I
learned,
could see that.
what I learned from that, though, having seen people do everything from have a child to bury someone, is that all we ever talk about is who that person is.
Yeah.
And but everybody now wants me to talk about why, and I say, well, shouldn't it be who
Yeah.
appears in your obituary,
Yeah.
who you are?
Yeah.
People talk about it when they give you a eulogy,
Yeah.
and who you are the lasting words that appear on your tomb.
Yeah.
So why are we so affixed with why?
Yeah.
So I think the starting point for what you just described is figuring out who we want to be. That for me becomes the intentional. Who do I want Cindy to say I was if
Yeah.
Cindy is the last person who has
Yeah.
a conversation with me?
Oh, I so love that. And you should actually do a TEDx talk on that. I think it is so important and so overlooked today. I have one of my models for negotiating is I call it the 5W model. And the first and most important, it's who. In every
Mhm.
difficult conversation you have for your life vision, who do I want to show up as in this conversation, right? Am I showing up in the traditional mom role, or am I
Mhm.
showing up as somebody who just wants to be a compassionate ear right now? Like, we
Mhm.
are so unintentional about who we show up as in our
Yeah.
life on a day-to-day basis. So I think you're onto something really, really
Can
important.
I can I add one more thing to the
Yeah.
who? So so then I take it to an additional level, which is what helps me as a father, or may help me as a husband or brother or whomever. I say, if you ask me, Cindy, who am I? And I'm in relation to my son, and you say, well, who are you as a father? I was like, the
Yeah.
greatest father in history of the world. Cindy, why are you even asking that question? Do you not know? Right? Then you might say, well, Nate, but who does your son think you are?
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say, well, I'm sure my son believes I'm the greatest
Yeah.
father in the history of the world. And then you could talk to my son, and he might say, Cindy, he would say, Mrs. Watson, he's a jerk. And then the question is,
Yeah.
who am I?
Yeah.
If I am couching myself as being the father, but the son says I'm a jerk,
Yeah.
am I the greatest father? Or am I who the son describes me as being?
Oh,
And
yeah.
and and so I always say, like, there are these three faces of who. Yeah, and I say, people, you're not who you believe you are. You're not who you think others believe you are.
Yeah.
You're exactly who those you're in a relationship with perceive you to be.
I love that. It's beautiful. One of the things I love, I think it was Brennan Burchard, the first time I heard it, and I apply it all the time now. Pick 3 words every day, like for if you're going into a meeting, if you're going into discussion, pick 3 words that describe who you want to be seen as in the eyes of whoever that particular audience. And it is a game changer for how we show up, right? Because then
Yes.
it's a surrendering of the ego. It's about how we're received as opposed to ourselves.
And if you say it out loud enough, then people will start to hold you accountable to it.
Yeah.
So one of my daily mantras is that I help serve and make sure others know that their lives matter.
Yeah.
And so now when people meet me and they're like, and I don't want to do something, they say, "Hey, don't you say you help serve and make sure?" I'm like, oh
That's good.
God. So yeah, be careful because
Yeah.
people are listening, they'll hold you to it, which is
Yeah.
great. Which is
I
great.
love that for a parenting mindset. And how do we instill more empowering mindsets in our children? I mean, I assume one of them is teaching them from a young age about who they want
Hmm.
to be. What
Hmm.
else would you say?
I think the what one of the biggest keys is just figuring out how to do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
So my grandmother is a big fan. She's still here with me in
Yeah.
spirit, but she
Oh,
died in 2011 at 103. So
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she would say to me, trees and fruit, trees and fruit. And I was like a kid, like, Grandma, what are you talking about? And
Yeah.
then when my son was born, I was like, oh, I got it. I'm the tree.
Oh, I
My
just got
child's the
it.
fruit.
That's
And
nice.
so the thing that not enough parents, I believe, pay attention to
Yeah.
is who are we as the tree of a
Yeah.
fruit,
That's good.
right?
Yeah.
They, all trees have ecosystems,
Yeah.
and we don't ever ask, well, what about my roots? Where are my roots? Are my roots right in places of trauma, or
Yeah.
my roots in places of triumph?
Yeah.
What feeds me?
Yeah.
What light am I getting? Sunlight or am I getting dark light? Like what am I like? What's around me? What's my ecosystem? Who's irrigating? Like what fertilizer that am I getting in my life? Because I am going to give that to my fruit. So I think that's like a great place to start by looking inward before we look outward.
Your grandma was pretty white. Trees and fruit. So simple. I love it. I
Trees and
hadn't heard
fruit.
that before. And that's awesome.
it's,
Now,
it's,
how did,
it's
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say it's an old biblical, like ye shall know the tree by the fruit that it
Yeah.
bears.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I like that a lot. How do you think child rearing styles play a role in like future job performance for kids, for example?
So I'm laughing because we had folks. I was talking to a guy from a business magazine. I won't say it because I don't want to offend anyone.
Okay.
But he said, Nate, we don't do work around parenting. And I said, well, how do you not do work around parenting when everybody that is an employee or an
Absolutely.
employer is either a product of parents or our parents?
Absolutely.
Right. And I said, so you are talking about this generation and you're complaining about stuff like quiet quitting. You're complaining about people wanting to
Yeah.
work remotely. And yet you've not asked how they got there. I said, so
Yeah.
let me share what I believe happened. About 30 years ago, we had an advent of computers
Yeah.
and children who were previously had to read books and talk to folks. You gave them tablets and told them to sit by themselves.
Yeah.
You gave them computers and told them to sit by themselves.
Yep.
You had to construct play dates so they never understood how to build relationships on their
Yeah.
own. So now when you find out that they don't want to go to work and talk to anybody, when they're quiet quitting, when you gave them video game systems that had headphones and
Yeah.
they could play with someone somewhere, anywhere in the world, but then when they didn't want to play with them anymore, they disengaged from them that we now call ghosting. I
Yeah.
said, all of that has to do with how we parented children. So let's be mindful of what we're doing today because we're creating the next generation of employees
Yeah.
and business owners.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so bad. That really struck a chord with me because, as you know, as a lawyer, I
Right.
specialized in labor law and social justice. So definitely saw the impacts of that over the years and more. I worry about for the
Mhm.
over the course of the next decade and generation as we further, there's so little social interaction now. I mean, it is getting more and more challenging to have human bodies. And I remember even with our kids, there are periods where you see them at social engagements and they're all on their darn they're in the same room texting each
Right.
other. I'm like,
Right. Exactly.
what, what the heck? So
Exactly. Exactly.
No, so we're speaking about the world being in
Yeah.
transition here. And I think, many people are really concerned that it's heading in the wrong direction. So how do we raise dreamers? I know that's something you talk about, who not only do they dream big, but also embrace responsibility to change the world for the good.
Well, again, for me, most of everything starts at the beginning, but it also requires us to continue to do it. So I'm an example of this. I have a son, he's 28 today, similar age to your
Yeah,
children.
yeah,
When he was born, what I watched him do, as you probably remember children doing, children dream, you don't have to tell them to dream.
yeah,
That's all they do.
yeah,
I'm going to the moon. How you getting there? Oh, I'm building a spaceship and the moon tastes like cheese. And like, you don't have to tell them to dream because that's what they do seemingly innately. They just have a vivid, wild imagination.
yeah,
We ruin it. We
that's,
start telling them, well, that doesn't make sense.
yeah,
That like you're get your head out the clouds. We start saying stuff
yeah,
and we dampen all of the dream rendering. So
yeah,
I would say first, never do that.
yeah,
Never tell a child what's not possible for them to do.
yeah.
My son at 16 decides he wants to leave the country because he has a dream. We've just finished reading The Alchemist, and Santiago had a dream of getting to the pyramid. So he's got a dream, and you're right, Dad. I'm ready to get to my pyramid now. We're in Vegas. We're standing on the Grand. We're going to the Grand Canyon, and we're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon. He and I are 3,000 feet or whatever at the edge of the cliff, and my wife is yelling at us about getting away from the edge, and I'm like, ignore her. How does it feel to be on the edge? He's like, this is great because we're dreaming. This is great. Anything can happen here. This is where the best life is. And he said, Dad, absolutely. And by the way, when I finish this semester, the second semester, my junior year, I don't intend to go back to high school.
Yeah.
I need to get out of here because my dream is to play professional soccer and to
Oh,
do it abroad.
yeah.
I said, oh, okay. So long story short, we travel to Brazil. He has some tryouts. He gets accepted by one of the top
Wow.
Brazilian soccer academies. It's affiliated with Manchester United. And he says, I'm going. I'm in the car with him and I'm crying. We've come back. He's ready to go. He's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, believe in me. And he said, but Dad, what do you dream about?
Yeah.
And Cindy, I said, I don't have any dreams.
Oh,
All my dreams were wrapped up into getting you here,
oh,
and you got here a lot sooner than I thought, and I'm a
yeah.
little perturbed now. He said, he said, Dad, it's not too late. You still have time. You can do more.
Oh,
And it was that conversation from a 16-year-old that reminded me that there was a little Nate that used to have dreams, and you
yeah,
need to revive him and
yeah.
start dreaming again.
Oh, I love your kid. You've done a good job, Nate. That's awesome. And it's true. It was one of the reasons why I started Woman on Purpose. At that point I'd been a lawyer for, 25 years, and I was proud of what I did, especially doing social justice work. I felt passionately about it. But having said that, I had done what was expected, like so many people do, right? I
Mm-hmm.
loved the arts when I was young. I loved to write and to sing and to dance and to act. But exactly what you said, oh no, you want something more practical, you could take and got pushed down a particular path and then wake up as the kids start getting older and leaving. And you're like, I feel such a hole here. So
That's it. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Yep. And the question we could ask ourselves is this. Whatever you believe in, if it's God, the universe, the spirit, if
yeah,
whatever you believe in,
yeah,
if you believe that there's something bigger than you,
yeah,
which we probably all should,
yeah.
imagine if that thing that was bigger than you whispered in your ear and said, hey, I got 8 billion people on the planet that are all pretty much the same. Unless you can tell me what you're going to do different, I don't need you here anymore. What would you do?
That's an eye
Right,
opener.
right. You would have a dream. You would suddenly have a dream. You'd be like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's so
wait a
good.
minute. Right. But because we are so accustomed to acting like today doesn't matter,
Yeah,
that whatever we're doing, I
yes,
can do it at a later date,
yeah,
then we don't force ourselves to dream about things or even consider
yeah,
things that are different. So that's one
yeah,
of the things I'd say, hey, every day I wake up and I say, okay, what can you do today
yeah.
that makes you better than you were yesterday?
Such a beautiful way to live life, because most people do, as you were just describing, I call it the one day mindset, right? Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
I've got this vision, but one day, when the kids are in school, then it's when the kids are out of school, then it's when I just get this one more degree or this one more this. And then That one day will never come unless you embrace it today. Start today. Yeah, okay, do your reverse thing. Here's where I want to
Yeah,
go.
I want to
And
go.
then
Absolutely.
figure out, what do I start? What are the steps to get there? Now, we talked
Absolutely.
earlier, you were saying about the manual. Tell us a
Mhm.
bit about, I want to make sure you've got time to tell us a bit about your starting five, right? That starting
Okay.
five system to raising an exceptional child.
So when I said to you that you said, how did you get to be where you are? And I said, the beginning and then you meet people. So I met five people. And so the starting five is in tribute or in respect to them. I met a gentleman named Judge James Kimbrough, his wife, Faye Kimbrough, Grant Turner, Charlene Turner, not related to me, although sharing
Oh,
the same last name,
yeah.
and Frank McKinney. And at some point in my life, Judge Kimbrough was the most respected person that I knew. He was a judge and was
Yeah.
was being considered for federal clerkship,
Yeah.
a federal appointment. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
And his wife was a beautiful woman, and she was our geometry teacher. And she held a master's degree, and of course, he had a law degree. So they were the most educated people I knew. Grant and Charlene sort of adopted me. I shared the same name, and Charlene was my business school teacher. Her daughter Michelle was my friend, and so people thought she was my mom. So they decided to adopt me and treat me like they were my mom. And Frank
Nice.
was a police officer, but a entrepreneur, owned a restaurant and a liquor store and a nightclub. And he adopted me. And so I
Yeah.
learned entrepreneurship skills from him. And they became my five.
Yeah.
So when I had a child, I realized, okay, well, Jim Rome says you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Robin Dunbar says that there's this thing called the Dunbar's number. Five people are responsible for about 60% of the things, everything you do. So
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I need to get five people at all time. And so I just said, well, what's that? I said, basketball team. Okay, so I need a point guard, I need a shooting guard, I need a small forward, I need a power forward, and I need a center because the child is the coach. And
Yeah.
our job is to execute what are the hopes and dreams for the child. So who's the point guard? Me. I'm the point guard. I'm gonna point my child in the right direction. I'm gonna guard all their hopes and dreams. Who's the shooting guard? Well, I need to find someone who's inspirational, that when my child walks in the room, they're always telling them,
Oh,
hey, shoot for the moon. If you miss, don't worry, gonna land on the stars. I need a small forward, somebody who makes sure we do all of the small things, dot all the I's, cross all the T's. That's generally been his mom.
yeah.
I need a power forward. I need someone who, when we get sick and tired of the child, because we do get sick and tired of children, someone who says, hey, listen, this ain't about you. We got to push forward. We got to power forward because there's a bigger goal in mind.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there's the center and the center of influence. Who can we meet? Who knows people
Yeah.
or knows how to make connections with people? So that became the starting five.
That is brilliant. Oh my gosh. I love that. Who would have thought a basketball analogy would be the perfect parenting paradigm? That's so good. So good. And for people who, and for any of our listeners out there who maybe, if they happen to be younger and they didn't have parents who were, sort of proactive enough to take that approach, do you recommend, is that something they can do now? Can they proactively go look for their sort of foundational five, that starting five?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I say. At whatever stage you're on in your life, you and I, Cindy,
Yeah.
might need a starting five. I think sometimes
Yeah.
in fact, I probably met you because in some ways, I was looking for
Yeah.
that. I don't know how to do everything. So I need people to point me in the right direction
Yeah.
and people to make sure I stay encouraged. So yeah, we can do that. We just all have to figure out where it is we want to go.
Yeah.
And then we can find the
Good.
people to put in place
Yeah.
to help you to get there.
So good. What are non-negotiable habits that you are committed to, Nate, for yourself, or whether for yourself personally and or parenting? I'm happy to take either or both.
Yeah, no, I'm non-negotiable about, well, so Cindy, you have to forgive me because this is gonna sound a little odd, perhaps. So, so every day amongst this mantra of I help serve and make sure other people know that their life matter, I'm non-negotiable about that. I must help, I must serve, and I must make sure that the interactions I have with people, that they feel like that their life matter. If to nobody but to me.
Yeah.
I'm also non-negotiable about how I take care of myself. So one of the things I write is that I'm in excellent health. I maintain abundant wealth. I sometimes have to explain that because wealth to me, I'm not just talking about financial,
Yeah.
I'm talking about mind, body, spirit, etc. And that I am a person who absorbs timeless wisdom and then shares it. But so I'm non-negotiable about that. But I would say people who know me well probably have heard me say this. I'm 160 pounds of twisted steel covered in premium, semi-sweet, ooey gooey, melt in your mouth, not in your hands, hot, dark, sexual chocolate. So I'm non-negotiable about how I take care of the temple, that the one temple that I get to house everything that makes everything happen. I'm non-negotiable about how I take care of myself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so good. You are a great interviewee. Let me tell you, my goodness. A gazillion sound bites just dropping from the ceiling here. That's so funny. And I want to
Thank
allow you a moment to
you.
brag on your son as well. You've been very humble and not done that. So just for our listeners out there, tell a little bit about what these parenting systems that you've applied, how your son has turned out.
Okay. So beyond the young man leaving the country at 16, he had finished he started high school as a seventh grader. At one point, he was fluent in 4 languages. He would say today he's not fluent in 4 any longer.
Yeah.
He tested in the top 1%, all of that great stuff.
Yeah.
He lived in Brazil. He played soccer in Brazil for about 13 months. He had a concussion. He came back home.
Oh,
He
ouch.
took I think a 3-day class to get him refreshed so he could take the SAT,
Yeah.
scored almost a perfect score. He got accepted to 27 of America's top colleges and universities. He had scholarships from most of those schools. I
Wow.
think the amount would probably be over $10 million in financial assistance afforded to him
Yeah.
if he
Wow.
could have taken it all.
Yeah.
He went to school. He went to Santa Clara University in Santa Clara County, California.
Yep.
He majored in electrical engineering and minored in computer science, computer engineering, finished in 4 years, got 7 PhD offers directly from undergrad, went to Carnegie Mellon on a full ride, finished his PhD last May in electrical and computer engineering, decided he was also going to do his MBA, so got accepted to 4 of America's top business schools, chose to go to NYU, where he is finishing his first year in quantitative finance and entrepreneurship. He's written 3 books, spoken various places throughout the country. Yeah, he's an exceptional
Oh,
young man.
oh, and kudos to you. You must be so proud, and I hope you credit yourself with that because that is pretty ridiculously impressive. So
I'm
that
grateful, and I'm mostly like I try to avoid the being proud because I know what's on
nice.
the opposite side of proud.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
good.
I'm grateful because if I know this from this small amount of time you and I shared, if I knew you when he was a child, you would have been a part of his village
Oh, well, thank
and
you.
you would have been partially responsible. And so, like I said, I'm an amalgamation of everything, and so too is he. And it's
Yeah,
not just me or just my wife. It's because
yeah,
other people decided to love him and
yeah.
pour into him as well.
Yeah. And gratitude. I like that. I'm a big believer in reframes. I think language matters and how we think about
Yes.
it. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. I like that a lot. And I normally like to end by saying, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? And again, it doesn't have to be about parenting, just one of those moments in life, Nate, where you see things differently, show up differently.
Alice, a lot of them. I think more recently, this whole ideal about what it truly means to be a global citizen.
Yeah.
The shift from just seeing myself through the lens of being an African American male to seeing myself through the lens of humanitarian
Yeah.
and understanding like that we're all here, hopefully for that purpose
Yeah.
and wanting to leave the planet better than it was when I arrived.
Oh, I love that. My gosh, it's no wonder I knew I had to get you on the podcast. That is so beautiful. I think one of the big motivations for me and start with the concept about the art of feminine negotiation. It's not actually gender based at all. It's just imagine a world where we all sought to truly seek to understand and meet the needs of others, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what a different
Yeah.
world that would be. So what a beautiful sentiment you shared. Nate, this has been fantastic interview. I mean, so much content and really valuable content. I mean, you've got some deep thoughts and you present them in a way that's so easy for people to apply. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
And where can people learn about you? Brag on yourself a bit here and where people can find out a little bit more about you.
Well, I'm gonna make sure you have my phone number so you can find me anytime. But the
Yeah.
rest of the world, it's simple. Anything you want to know about me, you can find it at nathanielaturner.com. So that's NATHANIELATURNER.com.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for our listeners there. Make sure to be looking Nate up. Make sure to be looking for the resources that he has out there. Parenting, probably one of the most important responsibilities and joys that we're ever going to be afforded in this world. And
And pain.
trees and fruits.
Trees and fruit. Yeah.
Trees and fruit. I love it. And I am sure you have all got lots of value from this episode. I know I have, frankly. I'm going to be re-listening to it and taking notes myself. Make sure to give the gift of sharing to others. I think this is such an important issue. This was great insights about parenting, but so much more than that, about who you want to be, how to show up in life, how you can impact people in the world. So please do give the gift of sharing this episode with others. And before we sign off today, I want to share some ways we can work together. If you're looking to up-level your negotiation skills, and by that I mean negotiate your best life and that of those around you, I've got everything from online to group to my signature VIP and masterminds. It'll help you leverage your innate natural powers, and yes, you have them, to be able to give more and get more of what you want and deserve in this life. If that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. Make sure to grab a copy of my book, The Art of Feminine Negotiation, if you haven't done that yet. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.